We already know that having more money and more stuff does not actually make us happier. It makes us happy to a point, to cover our basic needs, to have some luxuries, to be able to have some time off. But beyond a point, there's no more happiness. So if somebody wants to continue to chase that and be miserable, they can do that. But if they want somebody to help them get over that fear and to leave the safety, because as you mentioned with the hero and the heroine's quest, in order to embark on the quest, you have to leave the safety of the known world.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the On the Ball podcast, where we have curious conversation about life, career, spirituality, and anything in between. My name is Nicole Cutts, a civil engineer turned world traveler, public speaker, trainer, and Toastmasters champion. My goal is to bring you inspirational topics and people that can help you find your own definition of success. When you are ready, it is time to be on the ball. This podcast will be truly inspiring for you and probably for many people you know. So please share the link of the podcast with them. Also, a quick reminder, hit the subscribe and love buttons to get notified about the upcoming episodes. Then share a rating and a review if you like what you are listening to. Hello everyone, the guest for today is known as the Success Dog. She's a licensed clinical psychologist, success coach, and speaker who has been empowering people to achieve more balanced and successful lifestyle for over 20 years. Dr. Nicole Cutts empowers women especially to find their life's work and unleash their true potential, achieve their vision of success. Nicole helps her coaching clients to take a unique approach to uncovering and eliminating blocks that may be hindering achievement, psychology, and true joy. She has consulted with and coached executives, managers, and teams at Fortune 500 companies, federal government agencies, and nonprofit organizations. As a master facilitator and success coach, Nicole helps people create an exceptional life by honoring their mind, body, and spirit, so they can experience joy, passion, meaning, and ultimate success in their work. Nicole is also the author of the heroine quest fiction series, The Adventures of Isabelle, to empower young souls. When Nicole speaks to people about following their dreams and living from the inside out, she's drawing on her own experience, also having forged career as an artist, whose work has been exhibited and commissioned widely and featured in national magazines. Our topic for today is aligned with this message: living from the inside out and overcoming beliefs that hinder our process. If you would like to work with Nicole, go to her website that I link in the podcast description and browse through the different opportunities that include success coaching, retreats, therapy, and a lot more. You can also learn about her organization work and executive coaching on a different website that I also linked. You can also find Nicole on Facebook at Vision Quest. So make sure that you check out those links and connect with Nicole if you feel aligned with the messages that we share today. And now, when we are ready, let's get started with our episode of the day. Hello everyone, welcome back to the On the Ball podcast, where our guest is Dr. Nicole Cutts, also known as the Success Dog. And we are going to talk about living from the inside out. Thank you so much for being here, Nicole, and it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
First of all, I would like to start with your purpose statement. I have read, and it's really aligned with me. I read it on your podcast that your purpose is to be a living example that first, we can be successful while having compassion for ourselves, others, and the world. And then second, that we can live a life of abundance only as far as we bring real and meaningful substance to others. I would like to ask you, why is this so important for you, and how did you find this alignment?
Yeah, it's important for me because I believe that we're all uniquely suited to bring something to the world, and that's our mission and our purpose when we're here. And when we're doing that, we're also guided by feeling good about it and being happy about it, Sometimes people think they kind of have to suffer to bring something to the world, but I think that the thing we're meant to do is the thing that's also going to bring us joy and make us happy. And the reason why, for me, it has to be in alignment with bringing something to the world is because otherwise it doesn't qualify to me as a true mission or your vision of success. So when I say helping somebody to clarify and achieve their vision of success, I have the definition includes that has to be something that, yeah, sure, you'll feel good that you've succeeded, but that it's not just for you.
Yeah.
And a part of that is my belief or understanding that we're all on a hero or a heroine's quest. And that that quest involves, living our life's true mission. And so when you're guided by that, you are enjoying the adventure and you're bringing something to the world and you're doing something that you love, which you'll have energy about, but it's not just for you, right? So somebody wants to engage me as a coach and I talk to them about their goals and like, let's say, oh, I just want to be rich or, for what purpose, so to me, it has to involve giving something to the world.
Yeah, and that's so meaningful. And in many ways, I find patterns in it in different cultures as well. We can look into the Ikigai mindset in Japan or the heroism and the hero circle that you also had a TED talk about.
Yeah.
That there are so many patterns out there that tell us when we need to find that the purpose within ourselves or what we love. And then when we find that, we can give something to others, because eventually when we can put a smile on someone else's face and can serve them in a way, then that reflects back to us. And that's what we find pleasure in.
Yeah. And it's also what you'll have more energy toward. So when you're passionate about something, then you'll have because everything is difficult. Everything takes hard work, right? Everything takes some stick-to-itiveness. So if you're trying to do something that you really don't have any passion for, you're swimming against the tide and you're pulling from a well that's not even full. So I feel like that's why you should do something that you love if you can, if you're so lucky, because then you'll be energized to be able to follow it through.
But many times we feel afraid of that energy, and we also need that safety at a sense that we need to make sure that we can pay our bills and we can pay whatever is coming up in our ways. And the older we get, the harder it gets because the more responsibilities we have. So what do you tell your clients when they come to you and they face this fear of overcoming a job that they maybe don't like to go somewhere where they put their energies into?
Well, it's all guided by my clients, right? So if their real goal is to be doing something that they love, but they are continuing to do something that they don't love because it yields a good amount of money for them and they're suffering, it's still their choice, and so it's, well, you can stay here and have the right number in your bank account, or you can take the risk of going and doing something else and maybe only temporarily not having the number that you want in your bank account. Or maybe you can even make more. That's the thing also to me when I'm coaching people to live their visions of success for their life's work. They should be able to live off of that, right? So now if you want to make millions and millions and this thing that you want to do it's difficult to do that, then you also need to consider, why do you need all of those things? And a lot of times people have become attached to them, but we already know that having more money and more stuff does not actually make us happier. It makes us happy to a point, to cover our basic needs, to have some luxuries, to be able to have some time off. But beyond a point, there's no more happiness. So if somebody wants to continue to chase that and be miserable, they can do that. But if they want somebody to help them get over that fear and to leave the safety. Because as you mentioned with the hero and the heroine's quest, in order to embark on the quest, you have to leave the safety of the known world. And not everybody wants to do that. There is a stage in the hero's quest, at least, Joseph Campbell's and some other people, refusal of the call.
Mm-hmm.
You feel the pull and say no. They don't write stories about that person or make movies about them, but many people do, So it's your choice. But if you want to live that life and have that adventure, then you have to leave the safety of the known world.
Yeah, and as you said, it's many times the attachment that's there.
Mm-hmm.
But I always say money is comfort. All the goods that we have is comfort,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not happiness. It's not success. It is comfort, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's all its purpose.
Right. Well, even that is limited, the comfort, because when you have so much that you have to keep up, that's not comfort. Your basic needs are comfort. But if you're worrying about, oh my gosh, I have this, I'm holding up this huge thing, it has to be supported by all of this money. And that means I have to work and work and work. That's not comfort. So if you can have less and actually be more comfortable, but people don't consider that sometimes because our world and our society, at least the world I've been socialized by, tends to make us think that, to be successful, you need more and more and more.
Yeah, that's the purpose of advertisement, and that, you need just everything. So when does this journey start for you, that we should start searching success within ourselves, then grow from that on?
Mm-hmm. So, I've always been guided by my gut and my heart, which is, when we talked about living from the inside out. It's sometimes hard for people to be guided, but I think I've always sort of naturally been guided by that. I haven't really been very influenced by the need to belong or to fit in. So admittedly, for me, that's a little bit easier. But I always followed things that I was passionate about. When I was a child, I'd take up things of rocks, bugs, studying, I would get very excited about them. But what happened when I was in college, when I was in undergrad, I fell in love with studying clinical psychology, and I'd always had a fascination with that, but I didn't until I took, that first introductory psychology course. I fell in love with that. And prior to that, I had been a mediocre student at best, for my career. And when I fell in love with psychology, something clicked, and I finally, because I was so passionate about that as a subject, I was able to get good grades and then I learned how to study, and I generalized that to everything. So that was my passion. But when I was in graduate school, I was in a 5-year program to get my degree in clinical psychology. And around the 4th year, I changed a lot. I got a lot healthier. I had been, drinking and carousing and all those kinds of things. And I ceased that, and as I became healthier, I realized that a part of my fascination with psychology was the psychopathology aspect of it, the illness. And I also realized that while I still had a sort of intellectual fascination for it, living in that world, being steeped in that, constantly would not be good for me. Psychologists and psychiatrists, well, not psychiatrists so much anymore because they just do meds these days, but psychologists and other therapists, we have to do a lot of our own work after working with people's problems. We have to take care of ourselves, and we have, and I realized that that was probably not a good place for me to be. So I fell out of love with clinical psychology, and then I went on a search for, it's kind of like, well, what is my thing that I'm passionate about now? And at the time, I didn't think of a vision of success. My word was just passion. But I went ahead and finished my program because I'm also practical. And I was in 4th year of a 5-year program, so I was not about to just quit. So I finished that, but knew that I wasn't going to just get out and do what all of my classmates were doing, immediately start collecting hours to be a psychologist, get a practice, go in a hospital, those kinds of things. Because I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do something different. So I finished, I was out in Los Angeles. I came back to the East Coast, and I started my exploration. I prayed, I meditated, I read books like Barbara Sher. She has a book called I Could Do Anything If Only I Knew What It Was. There's a Purpose-Driven Life by Rick. There's Nelson Bowles, What Color's My Parachute. There are all these different. So I was reading books and I was praying and like, please show me my passion. What's my passion? And what I came to understand was that I had to, even if I wanted a burning bush and wanted something to say, this is now it, and that didn't happen. What I found was that I would get little inklings of which direction to go in. And the first place I was led back to, I worked during this time, but I worked part-time so that I would have time to do this. And I also had the luxury of living in my parents' house, so I wasn't paying rent. And, but I started following my instincts, and it led me back to my art, because I had always painted and drawn and everything, throughout school, but I didn't study that to get a degree, because I felt like you don't need a degree in fine arts to paint, but you do need a degree in psychology to practice it. So I went back to that, and, there again, Aniko, people, sometimes they want to, but this doesn't make sense. They might say, but that doesn't make sense. Well, it doesn't have to make sense. The world of the heroine's quest and the world of following your spirit doesn't make sense necessarily intellectually. So, I know for some people, like especially my parents' friends, they were like getting invitations to my art shows, and they were like, "Didn't Nikki just get a PhD in psychology?" My parents were like, "Yeah," so, but I figured out that I had to follow my instincts, and that would lead me to where I wanted to be. And by doing that, and it was not because I wanted to be a professional artist, it was just that I needed to do that, finish kind of that part of my life, take it to a certain level rather, not really finish it. And then as I was doing this, I realized I always liked working with groups. I liked teaching, I liked training, so I parlayed my clinical psychology, which is typically more a one-on-one medium, into working with organizations, and so that's when I started Cutts Consulting. And I wanted to, because I believe that you should have passion for your work and be happy at work, that was the premise on which Cutts Consulting was started, was to help people wherever they were in their work to access more passion and meaning in their work. Because, sometimes people have jobs and they take for granted that that job has some value or that they are achieving a purpose or a mission. So I like to help people to connect with that and to be healthy in organizations. So I brought the psychology, because there is, industrial organizational psychology. I parlayed that more into working with organizations. And then after that, I started Cutts Consulting. I continue to do that. But then I also started Vision Quest Retreats, via which I help particularly women to clarify and achieve their visions of success for their life's work. Sometimes people will say, and that's what I'm most passionate about. And sometimes people will say, "Oh, are you a life coach?" It's like, well, no, because I'm interested in your work. What is it you want to do for your work? And by work, I just mean whatever you're going to do to make your living.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I very much feel aligned with your story. Also, I graduated as a civil engineer, and I was truly passionate about it when I started. And then just close to graduating, I got an amazing student job, which was totally the opposite of what I was studying. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I really like this. And I don't like that much my career. And my classmates were shocked when I was like, okay, I'm going to quit engineering.
Right.
And they were like,
you can't do that.
Exactly. You are so good at it. And you got job offers and everything. And I'm like, yeah, but, and as you said, I think it's important to mention that our passions can change over time. And I think that was one of the messages that I really aligned with, that you said, you were passionate about one thing, but then it changes. So how do we accept that change?
That's a good question. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I have a theory about how we come to unite with our visions. And I see us, the humans, kind of as the vehicle or the vessel to bring whatever it is we're supposed to bring to the world. And our higher power, God, Goddess, is like a cosmic matchmaker. So, here's a Nico running around doing civil engineering. You're okay, but then you start to go, I don't love this anymore, because something in the spiritual world is like, you need to do this, you need to do this. And so then you start sort of, playing with it, considering it, and then go. And like you said, for some people, it's like, but this has always been my thing. Well, again, you have to go inside, and go on how you feel. If you're going with either just intellect or a response to what other people think you should do, that has nothing to do with you, right? So how do you accept it? Is you accept it, and it's a process, right? You don't just necessarily jump, and oftentimes you need to make a plan to get from one place to the other, but follow what makes you, like Joseph Campbell says, follow your bliss, right? So that's not going to fail you. Like when I'm talking to somebody about their work, like how you just lit up, right? If you're talking to somebody and they're talking about their job, and then they'll say, but what I really want to do, and they start like, well, that's what you need to be doing, and unfortunately, sometimes people they get stuck. And then when it's time to let that old thing go, they think they can't, and they can't even, they haven't been listening to their gut for so long that it's hard to hear it. And that's when I recommend, it's like you have to get quiet, and that's why you pray and meditate and just explore, pay attention, like what gives you even the slightest bit of, a bump. And again, it doesn't have to make sense, but in terms of how do you accept it, is you have to, again, it's the choice. Okay. What do I want? Do I want to feel like this, staying here and trying to hold on to something that's no longer for me? Or do I want to feel the excitement and the bliss and the passion of courting and uniting with my true vision and purpose? And then the other thing for me also is, it's not just about us, right? So to me, if I'm getting pushed in that direction, it's because this is what the world needs also. It's so I have my notions, right? I have my ego, and I want to do this and I want to do that. Like right now with COVID and the pandemic, Vision Quest retreats, it's kind of difficult to plan retreats, okay, to have people go away on a retreat. But, here in the United States, where we've always had a problem with diversity and race, a lot of people are waking up. A lot of organizations are asking for help with that. I'm trained in that. I have experience in that. So even though that's not the thing I was trying to do, that's where I'm being used right now. That's what I'm being called to do. So I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. As a purpose. And I do enjoy it. I know it's important. And when the time is right, when the pandemic, ends and we can travel again, and, hopefully if this gets better, then I can go do that. But, you just have to follow what your heart and your gut tells you, I think.
Yeah. And as you mentioned before as well, it's here and here, like here and there, bits and pieces that gets the puzzle together. But many people are expecting that big boom, like, okay, now I know what's my purpose and I can go and follow it. And that's not true. And I also had to realize that, okay, I'm searching for my purpose, and everybody's saying that you gotta do so many amazing things. I'm like, okay, just tell me what.
Like, right, tell me.
Yeah. So many times it's just like we need to slow down, like follow that. Okay, this is what I need to do. This is what I feel like. This is the next step. And there are signs along the way that tells us that it's a right decision or not.
Right.
So what sorry, go for it.
I'm sorry. No, I was going to just say, you felt that flow. It occurred to you after a while, okay, it's not going to just appear before me. I have to be, and that's the other thing. You have to be in motion, right? So I don't think you can just sit still and just imagine. You have to try things out to see, because we can have a fantasy of something, but the reality is different,
True.
right? And I compare it to if you're on one bank of a river or a creek, a wide creek, and there's fog, and your vision is on the other side. You might want to see it clearly, but there's fog, but there are stones. There are these stepping stones. So I recommend, look, like you said, follow the next thing. Okay, so where can I put my foot? If I put my foot here, then I can put my foot here, and then I'm getting closer in the fog. I'm getting through that fog. I'm starting to see. And then to my experience, and it sounds like your experience also, was that then you have the picture, but it comes by being in motion and taking one step at a time. And the other thing I find, this is a part of my theory, is that, and when you see in the hero and the heroine's quest, you know that you're on the right track when you start experiencing a lot of synchronicity. You know, like you probably noticed that once you said, let me go over here, things probably you thought about things, or you're looking for things and they kind of appeared, or you got no, you know what I mean? Like you got information. Did that happen with you?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I just hear that from people, and that was my experience. And if you look at like the hero or the heroine's quest, once you cross the threshold and you're in that that unknown place, a lot of, you know, cool stuff starts happening. People come out to help you. You meet helpers along the way, but you have to be in motion. You can't be in your house or your apartment just imagining and not moving.
Yeah, and what I realized as well is that if I take a step and there is no synchronicity around it, then I know that wasn't the right step because things didn't rise. So maybe I should try another step, because not every step is correct, and we can learn from every single experience.
Right.
So what would be the most important components from living from the inside out? How can we do that?
The most important competence?
Components.
Okay. I think that, well, first you have to listen. You know, I don't know if I can think of the one most important, but first you have to listen to hear, right? So if your mind is so full of noise of you saying, I want to do, I know, you know, I'm going to go, you know, you're not going to hear. And if it's so full of listening to other people, you're not going to hear. So the first thing you have to do is listen to get that urge. And then to take a risk, you know, be willing to take a risk and step out and let go of old notions of a perfect path or of steady upward trajectory, right? Like you said, sometimes you take a step forward. Oh, that rock was wobbly. Oh, you know, let me get back, you know. So being willing to see things differently than maybe we've been taught, that things go 1, 2, 3, 4, ABC, up, you know, that, you know, to be brave and to take a risk. And to know that when you are on the heroine's quest, it's not without failure or risks. Those are necessary parts of putting yourself out there. You will fail at some things. You will experience defeats. To me, those are confirmation that you are on that path, right? Because again, you read the Knights of King Arthur, the Round Table. You watch movies like the Avengers or Black Panther. You know, those are hero quests. They get beaten up, they fail, they die, they, you know, it's like, so that is a part of it, you know, otherwise you don't make movies about just so easy, you know. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. It's like, first of all, we need to listen and then accept that we need to sometimes take a step back. Failure is not a real failure. Yeah. That's most important when it comes to living with alignment in ourselves.
You're a good listener.
And how is this all related to success then? So taking the next step, like then finally finding that stable rock when we get
Mhm,
closer to that vision. So how is
mhm.
this alignment with ourselves then leading to the vision?
Well, leading to success, you're going to need that passion, once you've identified what it is that you really want to do, because it's hard work, right? So I recommend having a plan, having goals. If you can't hold yourself accountable, having some mechanism or another person or people to help you to be accountable. Have some support. You can't really do it on your own. You want to talk to other people who are also on that. Because I'm talking about the success I'm talking about, and I guess you are too, is the success of living your vision of success, right? So it's that sort of path less traveled versus like if you want to be a CEO and just because you want to be really rich, nothing wrong with that. But that's just work hard, you do. But if you want to be successful and stay aligned with your passion and your heart, you still need to have a plan. You need to work steadily. You need to have some balance also. I mean, I recommend, tending to your body, your mind, your spirit. One of the techniques I use with my coaching and therapy clients is somatic coaching, where you put a focus on your body to help you to increase your emotional intelligence and your well-being. I practice yoga, so you have to take care of yourself. You can't be work all the time. You have to have some balance, but you also set goals and have to set milestones to work, steadily toward those things and be clear about what the success is that you want. What does it look like for you? Right.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That is what I want people to stop and start asking from themselves. What is success for them? Because we start
Right.
comparing it with the materialistic world and then we get lost. And what the other
Right.
person thinks that a success, it might not be the same for me.
Right.
So yeah, we need to find that what is success for us. And
Right.
then we should follow that path,
Yeah.
that goal instead of following whatever is out there told us about
Mhm.
it. And then what
Yeah.
is yeah, go for it.
And one last thing I was going to say, and
Yeah.
also you have to be patient, because especially like it's easy for me, right? It's just me. I don't have kids. I mean, I have a dog now, but she's pretty inexpensive. But when you have all of those things, and so having money, making money to a certain amount is a reality, you might have to be in a transitionary period. At certain times I was working, in two different areas. I was painting and developing Cuts Consulting. Then I was Cuts Consulting and Vision Quest Retreats, my sort of day jobs. And, so you have to be patient, because it's not going to be necessarily, I mean, if you're lucky, you can just poof and go, fine. But it's not necessarily going to be like that. You might have to go through that transition, have a plan. Like if obviously money is an issue, how much do I need to survive? Maybe I need to save up while doing that. Maybe I need to slowly start to cut down on this while I build up this. But you have to be patient if that's your reality.
Yeah, very true. And I think it's an important message, because sometimes when we decide to switch and then, okay, now I will take the risk, it needs
Mm-hmm.
to pay off immediately. And if it doesn't
Right.
pay off, then what's happening? And then I should go back to
Right.
safety. What do you suggest to people then?
Well, you have to weigh things. What is safety to you? How much security do you need? That's why I say plan for it, right? So if you want to open a restaurant, don't expect to make money in the first couple years. You know what I mean? Like you have to plan for that. If you might need to downsize. Do I need all of this, in order to be happy? Maybe not. So, plan for it. If things start to get scary, go back to understanding that you're on the hero or the heroine's quest. It's supposed to have risk. It's supposed to be scary. That doesn't mean you can't stop at a certain point. It doesn't mean you can't, like you said, not go back, like run all the way back to safety and say, okay, now I'm just going to, get this, my really boring job back and work, 20 hours a day, you know what I mean? Like, don't do that, but maybe something to build up your stores again. Let's say you planned and you had all your little, acorns in your tree, but they got too low. I mean, if you're not eating, you got to do something to put money in there to eat. But you have to, again, be reasonable. When is it, okay, this is just too tough and I want it easy the way it was before? And when is it like, no, okay, I really practically need to stop and do this for a while? Because like you said, that could be an indicator that maybe I'm not going in quite the right direction. And that's hard to gauge. Like people might want, well, how long should I give it? That's not, it's your gut. You have to listen to your gut, both for your instinct, but also if it's hungry, to decide, to weigh these things and what's comfortable for you. It's going to be different for different people.
Very true, very true. And yeah, and as we are mentioning this, like doing something that we don't love versus doing something that we do love, and then the balance of safety, what is the psychology behind that? What's the end result if we stay with a job that we don't like, and what's the end result if we go with that leap?
Very, very, very good question. Well, let's start with the negative first. First of all, I think that anytime you're denying your natural instincts, what makes you happy, you're going to suffer, right? So you're not going with the flow if you're staying in that place, right? So you are going to suffer physically because of the strain on you. You're going to suffer mentally because of the fatigue and the strain. Spiritually, because you're not in alignment with what the universe might want for you, right? And of course, it depends. How much suffering are you? I mean, for some people, honestly, people will stay in jobs that they're miserable with sometimes until they die. That's the end result. Some people stay and their hair is falling out and they have, gastric issues and they're grossly overweight. I mean, that's the reality. And you're just not happy. Okay. And then you also will think, well, now it's impossible because you're buried under all this. How am I going to get out? By following your passion, you experience happiness, joy, bliss. You're energized toward it. You feel a certain freedom. You are in alignment in terms of your mind and in terms of your spirit. Now, physically, you still need to make a conscious effort, right? Now, you might be happy doing what you're doing, but there are people who are very happy doing what they're doing and they still neglect the vehicle. So that's why I really think it's important. If you're going to truly experience that happiness, you can't ignore what's going on from the bottom of your feet to here. You can't. And I think sometimes I did this thing once, bring your body to work day, because I think sometimes people are just here. It's like, all I need is my head to think and my little arms to type and I'm fine. It's like, yeah, but there's so much intelligence in the rest of your body. And when you listen to that, it will tell you what it needs to be cared for also, because you're not going to have the longevity to keep doing what you're doing. You're not going to enjoy if you're not well.
True. Very important to eat healthy and also do some exercise because, yeah, as you said, especially during these times, COVID time, everybody's home. It is gyms are closed. You cannot really go outside because it was winter, and then everybody's just sitting in front of their computers all day, doing nothing.
Yeah.
Where does that lead us? Like,
not happy and very obese. I mean, I got out. I walk even before I got my new dog at the end of January. But even before that, I mean, I go out every day. I walk like 3 miles a day. Now that's, again, easier because I love to go outside. Some people don't want to go outside, but so it's going to take more effort, for them. But we all can. You have YouTube. You can work out in your home. I mean, Nelson Mandela was in, when he was in prison for all of those many years, he used to get up at 5 o'clock every morning and do some huge number of calisthenics and, jog in place. And he was in a cell that was like, I don't know what, it's like 5x5. I mean, 6x6 could be 5x5, but like maybe 10x10, whatever it was not a house or an apartment. And he worked out. So,
But then some people say he had all the time.
No, he didn't have time. They worked at that prison. They had to work. Their work was getting up and breaking rocks in the blazing hot African sun. And that started at like 7 or 8. So he got up before that and did that. So,
it's priorities, I guess. Like, we need to understand how it's beneficial for our bodies and for our work that we love doing. If we can start exercising, get outside, or just do whatever is aligned with us as an exercise, that will help our work to the next level.
Yes. And our overall well-being. How do we feel? How do we function?
Yeah.
So, I think that's an integral part of it.
So now, as we are getting more technical, I also would like to ask you that, because you help people move forward, achieve results, live their dreams, make a difference, what techniques do you use to make that happen? How does an everyday people can start doing it?
Well, I use a mixture of techniques. Talking is one way. Asking questions of people. I use appreciative inquiry, which is a method used for change. You can use it with organizations and people, where you ask questions to find out what is it that gives life to the organization or the individual. So that differs from a model of, the typical sort of pathology model or the medical models we know, where if you're trying to fix something, so you look for what's broken and what doesn't work. So if I was doing that approach, I would go into an organization that's having problems with communication, and I'd be like, tell me all about how bad your communication is. So appreciative inquiry instead is looking for when something is working. What does work. So let's say on an individual level, you came to me and you said, I really hate my job, but I don't know what I want to do. I might ask you, tell me about a time in your life when you felt most vibrant, happy, and alive, and because it gets you to start to think about what were the conditions, what had me feeling like that. So that's one technique, is using appreciative inquiry. Paying attention, what makes you feel good, so that you follow that. There's more to it than that, but that's the watered down version. I use creative visualization. So using your imagination to create what you want. So the tools I use from creative visualization would be first to imagine your ideal scenario for your life's work. And the reason why it falls in the parameters of creative visualization is because you have to think about it and write about it and speak about it as if it's in the present tense, and also without any negative words. So that's one technique. You write out your ideal vision. So I might say, I'm living in Jamaica, a beautiful villa on the water, where I also conduct my retreats. I help many women who come several times, whatever it is, but present tense, all positive. Vision board is another technique from creative visualization to help you to see what it is you want, to be positive about it, to help it to come about. And I don't believe in just making a vision board and, you're done. I from that, then that's good. Do that. I think that can help. But also then breaking down your goals. So if this is your vision, what are the goals? We take these goals out and then creating an action plan. So very practically.
So important.
Yeah, right? Otherwise, it's like, oh, I want to do this. Okay, well, by when? So that's a question I ask often. By when would you like to have that? So once you have that, then you have to, what are the steps that lead up to that? So we back up, milestones, and so there's time management, making a plan, following a plan, whatever kind of time plan works for you. What are some other techniques? Well, the somatic techniques that I mentioned. So, if at the very least teaching people to learn how to breathe and get centered, and so that they can be quiet and they can listen and they can also, via somatic techniques, change how they feel, right? So it's all based on, our basic wiring of the fight or flight mechanism. So, if you are feeling afraid, like you said, you might say, oh, I don't think I can do this. Okay, well, let's get into that. Let's get at that fear. How does that manifest in your body? Learning to breathe into it, learning to change your posture, because when you change your posture and your breathing, you also change how you feel emotionally. So that's a technique. What else do I do, Artemis? You're up here all the time listening. It's my dog. Writing, journaling exercises. If somebody is dealing with blocks that might be of a more psychological nature, well, then I use a variety of different models, of theoretical models from psychology to help them to deal with those things. But it's mainly, just asking questions, getting people to be clear about what it is they want and what might be blocking them, and then having them, make a plan, be accountable, and following through.
Yes. So important to have a plan and just, we always talk about visions, as you said, like, oh yeah, I have a vision, I have a dream, the important sentence. But from that dream, you also need to start, what's the dream today? What can I start doing today that will reach that step at one day? To put it. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. What's the dream today? That's good. Yeah.
Feel free to use it.
I might. Hold on.
And you also mentioned blockages, and you work with people who just bring blockages from their childhood, but also there is plenty of blockage around us on a daily basis. So what are the messages that hold us back, and how do we break them?
It's a very good question. Also, there are a variety of messages. Some we receive from society at large, some, like you said, childhood. Unfortunately, there can be there's a range of messages that can range from, abuse of, a parent telling a child you're nothing, which for some sad reason, their own damage. Some parents, that could be a blockage, that this child has been told over and over something very negative about themselves that they then incorporate into their sense of self. And also, we learn how to treat ourselves from the way we were parented. So let's say your parents were very harsh and very critical and very demanding. You typically you learn to be like that with yourself. Okay. So that's the very, very far negative range would be the actual verbal abuse with those kinds of negative messages. Sometimes they're more subtle. Sometimes they are more like, this is the kind of work you should do because this is what our family has always done. They talk to you about, like, well, what are you going to be when you grow up? Are you going to be this, or that? You know what I mean? Like, so there are those messages. You hear that a lot. I listen to a lot of comedy and, a lot of stand-up comedians whose parents are, they might be living in the United States or in England and their parents are immigrants, and they would say, you engineer, a doctor, or this, and when they say they want to be a comedian, it's like, are you crazy? So that could be a message that these are the kinds of jobs you should do. They might be based on gender, a woman, you should do this, a man, you should do this. So those are sometimes the messages. The other message might be, something like, you have to have a lot of money. That's the most important thing, and so that child grows up to take on a profession that will yield them a lot of money, but no happiness. I mean, I don't know if this is just a coincidence, but I work with a lot of people who are attorneys, former attorneys. who went to law school because that is the thing that's going to make them a lot of money, and then they are miserable. So it could be a message about what it is you should do, what you should have, being safe. Message could be, play it safe, don't take risks, be afraid. You have to have a lot of security. You aren't the right person to do that. That could be the kind of message that you get. So, but for all of those things, if you've incorporated them, whether from your parents or from society, we'll start with the parents first. Most people need to learn to reparent themselves. First you have to recognize, in what ways am I holding myself back? What messages or stories am I working with? Right? Because those messages also make stories. Like, this is my life. This is what happens. Mm-hmm. So is that story helpful for you, or is it hurtful? Are those messages enabling you to move towards your vision or hindering you? Right? There's something called the 5 A's. David Richaud, who's a psychologist, talks about these things, and I never remember them all at one time. Affection, allowing, attention, and appreciation. And I'm going to forget the 5th one. But those are things that we should receive from our parents in, good enough amounts to develop a healthy sense of self and be able to go out there. Most people don't. Right? So I bring those to clients, like, to pay attention to how much are you, let's say, allowing yourself. Like, a classic example would be, you're sad, you're mad, you're angry about something, and you're not allowing yourself to feel that. Well, maybe that's because you were always taught, like, you're supposed to stay in this range. You weren't allowed to, let's say you were a sensitive child and you cried, stop crying, learning to first allow yourself to pay attention to yourself. How do I feel? Give yourself affection, compassion, love, so those are ways to correct those messages. And it takes time, because when you're young, and especially when you're a child, our brains are very malleable. Those synapses are constantly firing and wiring together. It creates a pattern of thought, emotions, and leads to behavior. So you have to really make a conscious effort to think differently. That's another technique I have people do, is to think every day and to write down 3 good things that they've done for themselves, in support of their vision, or support, because you want to give yourself credit for doing them, which a lot of us haven't, don't get enough, or we don't give it to ourselves enough. Give yourself credit, and also look at the evidence that you do care for yourself. And then 5 things for which you're grateful, because that gets those synapses going in that direction also. I feel like I got off track of answering your question.
But it's fine. I actually have another question. Like, what about the opposing messages? So if someone comes from a really poor family, then they are like, okay, I have to be rich. Or if someone comes from a really strict family, they want to rebel against it. What about those messages?
Well, again, you have to look at this message and these stories. Does that serve me, or does it not serve me, right? And is it in line with me, or is it in alignment with somebody else's story, right? Because our parents' stories usually come from their parents and their experiences, right? So yes, that might have been your experience, but I'm allowed to have my own experience. I think anytime you're acting from a place that's based on rebellion, you're still being reactionary. So that's not necessarily you, that's you being reactionary to something else. And you can kind of discern that. When is this, I'm rebelling for rebelling's sake? And when is it, I'm rebelling because this doesn't feel good, I got to get away from that. But then I need to come from a place, again, of acting from the inside out, which is different than reacting to other people.
Yeah. And do you see your clients that when they come to you, are they aware of these messages or not? And what would be the consequence of never getting aware of these patterns and messages?
People are aware to varying degrees, usually. Some people have, and to back to emotional intelligence, some people have a very high degree of self-awareness, and they can tell you, this is the messages I'm working with. And I can say, well, where do you think you got those messages? And they can say, oh, it sounds just like my mom or my dad or my teacher. So some people are very aware, but that awareness doesn't necessarily break you out of it, right? Because you can be aware, but you still have that pattern. Some people are a lot less aware, and it takes more time to kind of get to like, okay. And sometimes people want to hold on to their stories, right? Because even stories that, let's say, I could see are not serving them, there's some payoff in the story. So, for example, a storyline that ends in, I'm not responsible, people can really want to hold on to that, even if it involves being victimized, right? Well, I could never do that, or I can't do that because they won't let me, and they've said this, and people have done this and this and this to me, and I hate that, and I'm very miserable about that. Okay, well, let's explore the part that you control or that you contribute. How do I have a part? I don't have a part. Okay, so there's a payoff to holding on to that story, and it's my job to shine some light on it, ask some questions, to suggest it. But sometimes people they want me to, it's like, no, just fix me, but I'm still going to keep thinking the way I've been thinking.
So how can we become from the victim to the hero?
For some people, they might not get there. I'm going to say that. For some people, they might not get there. It's not a guarantee. But the quickest way is to look at what it is you are responsible for. What can you affect? What can you change? And, technique wise, again, I'm a big fan of the Serenity Prayer for its spiritual content, but also on a practical level. So the Serenity Prayer if you or your listeners are God or Goddess, grant me the serenity to help me to accept things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I didn't say it perfectly, but that's okay. So then I recommend saying it one time through, and then saying it, inserting whatever the thing is that maybe is troubling you. So, and I do this every day on my walk, so I'll be doing this shortly. God has granted me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. I cannot change other people. I cannot change the fact that we're in a pandemic. I cannot change many things, but whatever it is of that day, right? So grant me the serenity to accept that is the reality. The courage to change the things I can. I can change my attitudes and my actions. How is it that I am reacting to this or thinking about this? Am I taking it personally? Am I pouting? Am I, doing whatever, being ungenerous or ungracious with somebody? And then my behavior. Maybe I need to get to work on something. Sure, we're in a pandemic, but there's some things I could work on right now. I could be planning this or taking a class. So instead of focusing on the things you can't change, that gives you the out, right? I'm a victim, but look at what they're doing. Look at what they're doing. Look at what they're doing. Okay, all right, fine. They're doing, but what are you doing, right? And so then think about, well, what is it I could be doing today to help me move forward? That's a good tool, I think, to help you to go from being a victim to being a hero or a heroine. But first you have to recognize that you are being a victim, because there are some people who know that this is just immutable facts. I cannot do anything because this has happened. I say, maybe you should see somebody else. you can't be open, so yeah.
Do you do that sometimes if you feel like that you are not a match?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or if they need something as an adjunct to help them, like if I have a client, not now, but I have had clients who, have a problem with drugs or alcohol. and they don't want to deal with that, but they want to just keep coming to me, I will say, you're wasting your money and your time. You really are only going to get so far if you don't deal with this, So go do that and come back. Some people need to go to a psychiatrist. You should be evaluated. It sounds like you really have depression, and a psychiatrist can evaluate you. Well, I don't want to be on meds. And you might not have to be, but you can keep spinning your wheels, but you're wasting your money and your time. Yeah, so I will.
And going back to the question when you were talking about your greatest mission and what you enjoy the most is these vision quests. And you said it's for women. Why is it only for women? And what actually got you into it? So what was the stone that got you into Vision Quest?
So I guess I'll answer the second part first. The stone that got me into Vision Quest is when I did my own ideal vision scenario, being in a way in the types of settings that I imagine are the places where I thrive the most, where I'm happiest. A warm climate, the ocean, not too many clothes, that's where I'm at. The sunshine, that's where I feel freest and happiest. So I imagine being there. And I know other people also like to do that. It's very hard to, really delve into this kind of work among all of your day-to-day stuff, So I know that I like to go away to write, to paint, those kinds of things. So wanting to be in that environment was one thing, and wanting to help other women to have them, have that same thing, where we could work concentratedly on whatever, whether it's their vision. I've also done writing retreats. I know Maria, did writing retreats with Maria. So the stone was really just when I, go, okay, where do I ideally want to be? That's the vision that comes to my head. Why women? I feel like I'm uniquely suited to work with women. One, because I am one, but also because I think that women have, and not that men don't have, they have their stuff, but I'm just not an expert in their stuff, right? So I feel like there's not enough, like the thing with the hero and the heroine's quest, okay? There's definitely a bias in at least the world I'm a part of toward seeing a male in that role, being the primary, being the hero. And then for the woman to kind of either be, an object of that or, ancillary in some way, and that's just not me. Like, that's not my bent. That's also the books that I've written, The Adventures of Isabelle, is because, she's a different kind of fairy tale princess who, I want to honor all the different types of women and expressions of being a woman, and she's like Isabelle. She's not a Cinderella or a Snow White. Now we're seeing more different images now, but she wants to have adventures and go out there and do all that kind of stuff. And I think that women are socialized often in a peculiar way to not follow their visions. And a lot of that messaging, and it's fine if this works with you. Like, I'm not saying one message is good, one is bad. My thing is there need to be enough messages and enough representations that you find one that aligns with you, right? So I think a lot of women are socialized to take a backseat, to think that if they fully go for their vision around work, especially, that they're somehow being selfish. That women are socialized, especially about how they are in relation to other people, right? So we're helpers, we're nurturers, we're supposedly we're supposed to do those things. So we can have our vision, and a lot of this was how I was socialized, obviously. We can have our vision and you can have a job, a very successful job, you can do it, but you also need to make sure you're taking care of somebody else, and whether it's children or a husband or whatever. And that doesn't work for me. So I feel like, and also how we are as women in the world, like if you're a leader, right, we're held to a different standard, the double standard of how we're supposed to behave, how we're supposed to get things done. So I feel like I can help women, especially those who, have gotten some of that brainwashing, in a unique way. And that's women, and I also am a believer in, like I like the idea of like single sex education, and for women, to just be focusing on that is, I think it's a little easier when you don't have, like co-ed situations and,
And also, I don't know if you saw it on LinkedIn, but there is this movement now since International Women's Day. Many women founders, they are posting that I'm a leader, I'm a CEO, and they are crossing out the female part, that I'm not a female CEO, I'm not a female leader, I'm just a CEO, I'm a leader.
Great.
It doesn't
Yeah, I
mean to
have not
say
seen
that
that.
I'm a female. What's the
Right.
difference? I still
Right.
achieved everything a man did. Why do I have to
Right.
have that word female in front of my
Mhm.
word?
Right. Right. And that's the other thing, is that leading as a woman could mean different things, right? But we don't in general value that enough, right? So what we've done also, I think, is as a society, we gear women leaders like, you'll be a leader if you evince these characteristics that these male leaders have. That no, like you might lead in a unique way, but then let's look at the best of that, right? So you might lead like a man, or you might lead in your own unique way. And I think that, some people, like you said, they might say, well, what's the difference? There's really no difference. And I don't agree with that, only because biologically, we are in general different, right? Get down to specific people, very masculine woman, very feminine man. But in general, I think that we have different qualities and temperaments and things like that in general.
Yeah. And what are the results you see in the women that attend your vision quest when they go home? How did they transform during the time that you together?
Mhm. Well, they're usually, for one, they're energized. They've had this time away to really focus on their vision and get clear and know what it is they're going to do next. So they're energized. Sometimes that's the movement, is that they've gotten more clear. That's also why I like the idea of going away, because you just get to focus on your vision. And I've heard from people afterwards, I went home, I did what I was, because that's another part of why I have the retreats and why women and all that, is because it's not just for this moment or those days on the retreat. I encourage the participants to also hold each other accountable and to have that support and have that community. So people can report to each other and back to me, and I stay in touch with them, how are you doing? And so then they go and they will be often inspired, get that energy, but then also follow through on their goals. Yeah. So yes, hopefully soon we will be back to not the way things were before, but back to it without having this over us.
Yeah, I think there will be a big change coming. So on the positive end. So we will realize what is important, and we will start shifting towards that. There are so many movements going on out there these years that will change the globe and the mindset of people to the positive and where it needs to be. So yeah, we can always find something positive even in the bad.
Yeah.
So
We need to.
we are leading up to the final questions that I usually ask from my guests. First of all, we started with your purpose and your vision of success, but how would you describe the definition of the word success?
I define success as doing the best that you can do under the given circumstances in a way that you are happy in what you do, and that you, if it's work, that you're supported by what you do. If you need money, it might not depend on money, right? Success could just be created the biggest library in the world and you're not getting any money from it. So that you have done and you've given your very best to whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, and that you feel happy and good.
Yeah, doing the best we can. Yeah, my second question to you. We have been talking about different topics today: the power of women, overcoming our blockages and the messages we bring with ourselves, also how to find our purpose and passions. But if you would have 1 minute to describe your most important message, that could be aligned with these, or it could be something else, and you could tell it to the whole world in this moment, what would you say in that 1 minute?
1 minute, what would be my message, the most important message? I think it would relate to the definition of success. I think it would be to content yourself with giving your very best to everything that you undertake, and also to your having the best possible relations with people, because at the end of the day, I find as, I'm getting older and I've lost my father, all of my grandparents, different family members, that at the end of the day, that's really all we have. So to not neglect, success would also be to not neglect those relationships and having them be at their best possible state as well.
Beautiful. I think it's so important to also take care of our relationships. Could it be family or just anyone who is around us? Because at the end of the day, even though we go away alone and we spend most of the time alone, those connections do lift us up if they are the right ones. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
My third question to you, you mentioned a few books, you mentioned a few people that you look up to. And I would like you to think about a message, a wisdom that you gain from someone else, because I'm also about learning something old every day, an ancient wisdom. So what is something that you learned from either parents, grandparents, or just a book or a course? That's a wisdom that you carry with you.
My father, he loved the book The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, and my whole attitude toward work comes from my father, and also the Khalil Gibran's poem on work. It's, what is it to work with love? And it's to sew the garments that you're making as if they are for your beloved. It's to build the house as if it's for, so to me, that's I get a lot of wisdom every day from all sorts of regular people, and but from Khalil Gibran, that probably has the most meaning to me, and especially since it came via my father, who was a very hard working man, and he was very successful, but he also was very loving and very present. Even after he was a physician, he was an obstetrician and a gynecologist. And after he died, to find out from his patients how much he did for them. I knew they loved him, but it was almost like, how could you be so present for us and be so present for all of these other people? he worked very hard, and then he was home and he tended to his yard. Everything he did, like my whole work ethic comes from him. My sister and I talk, like if we're wiping the car or doing, we do it properly, from that. So yeah.
Yeah, so important message. Yeah, sometimes we don't look as close as our parents. It's very important. So
I was lucky. I mean, I'm very lucky in that respect. Both of my parents, but especially my father when it comes to that.
yeah, thank you so much for being here, Nicole, and sharing your stories with us. It was amazing. I was drawn to all the stories you said. I really enjoyed that step in the river and then the fog with the vision. I think I really aligned with that. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And now you have to remind me, because you said something that, what is your vision what is your dream today?
Yeah.
That's what you said. Okay. Yeah. Thank you also for having me. This was a pleasure. It was great talking to you. A great way to start my weekend.
I'm happy that I could be of service. Thank you, Nicole, for such an insightful interview. I love that we were talking about what is your dream today and finding those little steps towards your vision on the other side of the river. It was a wonderful metaphor. I truly loved it. What was your favorite take on the episode? Let me know on social media at anikuto.me, or you can also write me an email. If you would like to connect with Nicole and learn more about the Success Dog and her work, feel free to check out her website and her social media as well. You can find all the links in the podcast description. And now, if you have any topics in mind for the next episode, or if you have a guest in mind, feel free to share that with me on social media as well, and I will do my best to deliver the best episodes to you. Have a wonderful week, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on our next episode. If you found this episode motivating, make sure that you share it with others and text this to your friend right now who you think would be inspired by this story. The best way to live a happy and fulfilled life is to serve others. So share this episode with people you care about. It has no cost, but will elevate them and make their lives even better. If this is your first time here, click that love and subscribe buttons and make sure that you leave a rating and review. I would love to hear your thoughts and feedback on how this message lifted you up, brought you a change into your life. I would also love to hear your own definition of success. I'm so grateful for your support, sending love and great health to you all. And now it is time for you to be on the ball.